You know how everyone's talking about data these days?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it turns out regulators are really starting to pay attention,
hmm
especially when it comes to financial crime.
Makes sense.
We dug into some research from the Compliance Officers Playbook podcast,
Okay, okay.
and they're saying 2025 is going to be a turning point.
Oh, wow.
Apparently, it's not enough for companies to just say they manage risk.
Right.
They'll need to prove how they do it.
That's right.
It's a big shift from simply checking the boxes to demonstrating that data governance
Yeah.
is truly baked into the way a company operates.
Yeah. Imagine trying to manage financial risk without a clear map of your data. It'd be like navigating a maze blindfolded.
Okay, that's a pretty powerful image.
Yeah,
So it sounds like companies need to get their act together before the regulators come knocking.
definitely.
Where do they even begin?
Well, the podcast highlighted a few key areas that regulators are going to be scrutinizing.
Okay.
Think of it as a roadmap to compliance and success in this new data-driven world.
All right, lead the way. What's the first stop on this roadmap?
First up is data lineage.
Okay.
It's all about understanding the journey of your data from the moment it's created to its final destination.
Uh,
You need to be able to trace its path through all the systems and processes it touches.
so it's like creating a family tree for your data.
Exactly. You need to know its parents, grandparents, and even its distant cousins.
Yeah,
And like any good family history, it can get pretty messy.
I bet. Especially
Yeah.
for companies that are constantly acquiring new businesses or merging different data sets.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
But why is this family tree so important to regulators?
Right.
Are they really that interested in genealogy?
Not exactly.
Okay.
It's more about accountability and transparency.
Mm-hmm.
If something goes wrong, like a data breach or a case of financial crime,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to pinpoint exactly where the issue occurred.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be searching for a needle in a haystack if something goes sideways.
Right. Data lineage gives you that clear line of sight.
Yeah.
Plus, it helps demonstrate to regulators that you truly understand how data flows through your organization, especially when dealing with multiple sources.
So no more flying blind.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the next stop on our roadmap,
Okay.
data traceability.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah,
How is that different? Aren't we already tracing the data's journey?
we are, but data traceability takes it a step further.
How?
It's not just about knowing where the data came from, but also being able to connect specific outputs to the exact processes that generated them.
Yeah.
Think of it as a detailed map of how data moves and interacts within your organization.
So instead of just knowing that data point A came from source B,
Yeah,
you'd be able to say this specific customer transaction triggered this specific alert in our system because of this specific data point.
precisely.
Wow.
And this level of detail is becoming crucial for compliance, especially when it comes to financial crime.
Uh-huh.
Regulators want to see detailed reporting that connects the dots between data and actions. They need to know that you can not only flag suspicious activity, but also understand the why behind it.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all of this ties together.
Right.
Do you need to know where the data came from, how it's been transformed, and what actions were taken based on that data?
Exactly.
But wouldn't that level of scrutiny create a huge administrative burden for companies?
Yeah, that's a good point.
How can they balance compliance with actually getting work done?
That's a great question, and it's something that a lot of companies are grappling with.
I bet.
The key is to view data governance not as a burden, but as an opportunity.
Okay.
It's a chance to build stronger, more transparent data practices that ultimately lead to better business decisions and greater trust from both regulators and customers.
So it's not just about avoiding getting slapped on the wrist.
Right.
It's about building a solid foundation for success in this new data-driven world.
Exactly. And that foundation is built on high-quality data,
Okay,
which conveniently brings us to the third stop on our roadmap,
gotcha.
data quality management.
All right, let's talk data quality.
Sure.
I've heard the saying garbage in, garbage out. Is that what we're talking about here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
If the data you're using to make decisions is inaccurate, incomplete, or unreliable, it can have serious consequences.
Mhm.
Not only could it lead to regulatory penalties, but it could also damage your reputation and hurt your bottom line.
Right.
Imagine a financial institution relying on inaccurate customer data.
Hmm.
They could end up denying loans to qualified applicants or miscalculating risk scores.
Ouch. That could be a public relations nightmare.
It definitely could.
So how do companies ensure that their data is top-notch and ready for prime time?
It starts with understanding where your data comes from, both internal and external sources.
Okay.
Then you need to establish processes to validate that data, clean it, and ensure its reliability and accuracy.
Gotcha.
Think of it like running your data through a rigorous quality control check before it hits the assembly line.
So data quality management isn't a one-time fix.
Right.
It's an ongoing process.
It absolutely is.
I see.
You need to constantly be evaluating your data, looking for errors and inconsistencies, and making sure it meets your business needs and, of course, those ever-evolving regulatory requirements.
This is a lot to take in.
Yeah, it is.
We've covered data lineage, traceability, and now quality.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like data is no longer just a tech issue.
Yep.
It's a core business issue that affects every department.
You hit the nail on the head. And it gets even more complex when you start thinking about all the data companies are getting from third parties.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually the next stop on our data governance roadmap.
Okay.
Third-party data and risk governance.
This is where things get really interesting.
For sure.
The podcast we're looking at mentioned that regulators are increasingly concerned about how companies are managing data coming from or shared with third parties.
Yeah.
It makes sense, though, right?
Definitely.
You're essentially trusting someone else with your most valuable asset.
Exactly. The use of third-party data has exploded in recent years, and it's created a whole new set of challenges for data governance.
Yeah, I bet.
Regulators are looking at everything from the due diligence processes you have in place before even engaging with a third party to the data governance frameworks you build into your agreements with them.
So it's not just about getting the cheapest data anymore.
Not at all. It's about finding reliable partners who align with your own data governance standards and ensuring that your contracts with them are ironclad when it comes to data quality, security, and privacy.
It sounds like these agreements need to be incredibly detailed and comprehensive.
Yeah.
What kind of things should companies be including?
You need to be very clear about data ownership. Specify any restrictions on data usage and establish procedures for data breach notification. Think of it like building a security system for your most valuable asset, your data.
Okay.
You need layers of protection,
Gotcha.
strong access controls, robust encryption, and a plan for what happens if the alarm bells go off.
That's a great analogy.
So data lineage, traceability, quality, and third-party agreements.
Yep.
What's the final stop on our data governance roadmap? We've covered a lot of ground already. Lineage, traceability, quality, and even third-party agreements.
Yeah, we have.
Is there anything else companies need to be thinking about as they navigate this new world of data governance?
There's one more crucial piece of the puzzle, and it ties everything together.
Okay.
The final stop on our roadmap is enhancing overall data risk governance frameworks.
Okay, so we're zooming out to the big picture now.
Right.
What does that look like in practice?
Think of it as taking a holistic approach to data management.
Okay.
You need to have the right policies, procedures, and controls in place to mitigate risks across the board.
Mm-hmm.
It's about establishing clear roles and responsibilities for data governance, implementing access controls, and data encryption measures.
Mm-hmm.
It also means conducting regular risk assessments and having a solid incident response plan in place.
So it's not just about preventing bad things from happening.
Right.
It's also about knowing what to do if they do. Exactly. And it's something that regulators are going to be paying very close attention to.
I bet.
They want to see that you've thought through all the potential risks and have a plan to address them.
This is all starting to sound pretty intense.
Yeah, it can be.
It's a lot for companies to handle, especially with everything else they're juggling.
I hear you, but remember, data is one of your most valuable assets.
It is.
It's also one of your biggest liabilities if it's not managed properly.
Right.
Think of the damage that can be done if sensitive customer information falls into the wrong hands or if critical business data is corrupted.
Okay. That puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
So to recap, you've got 5 key areas to focus on.
Okay.
Assessing data lineage systems, strengthening data traceability practices,
Mm.
prioritizing data quality management, reviewing third-party data agreements, and enhancing data risk governance frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get all that right?
You nailed it. It's a tall order, but it's absolutely essential for any company that wants to succeed in this new data-driven landscape.
It's a bit like building a house, isn't it?
How so?
You need a strong foundation, solid walls, a sturdy roof, and a good security system to keep everything safe and sound.
That's a great analogy. And just like building a house, data governance requires careful planning, the right tools and materials, and ongoing maintenance.
Speaking of tools, are there any specific technologies or resources that companies can use to help them with all of this?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it sounds like trying to keep track of everything manually would be a nightmare.
You're absolutely right. Thankfully, there are a lot of great data governance solutions out there that can help automate and streamline many of these processes.
Hmm.
Everything from data lineage mapping tools to data quality monitoring software.
So companies don't have to go it alone.
Not at all. There are tons of resources available to help them navigate this complex landscape.
That's good.
And frankly, they'd be foolish not to take advantage of them.
All right, so we've laid out the roadmap, we've talked about the tools, but let's get real for a minute.
Okay.
What are the actual consequences for companies that don't get this right? Are we talking about a slap on the wrist or something more serious?
The consequences can be significant both from a financial and a reputational standpoint.
Oh, wow.
We're talking about hefty fines, potential lawsuits, and damage to your brand that can be incredibly difficult to repair.
Yeah.
Remember that 2024 crackdown on financial crimes risk management?
Yeah, that was a wake-up call for a lot of companies.
Exactly. Regulators aren't messing around.
Right.
They're sending a clear message that data governance is a top priority, and they're not afraid to take action against companies that aren't taking it seriously.
So it's not just about ticking boxes and hoping for the best.
Not anymore. It's about making data governance a core part of your company culture.
Uh-huh.
It's about integrating it into every aspect of your operations and making it a key driver of your success.
And it's about recognizing that data governance isn't just a cost of doing business, but an investment right.
Exactly.
An investment in your future, your reputation, and your ability to thrive in this increasingly data-driven world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So it's not a burden.
Right.
It's a strategic advantage.
It is.
Okay, so the message is loud and clear. Data governance is no longer optional. It's essential.
For sure.
But let's play devil's advocate for a moment.
Okay.
Couldn't all this focus on data actually stifle innovation?
I see what you mean.
I mean, if companies are so worried about compliance, won't they be afraid to experiment with new ideas or take risks?
That's an interesting question and a valid concern.
Yeah?
There is always a risk that too much regulation can stifle creativity and slow down progress.
But couldn't you also argue that these constraints could actually force companies to become more innovative in how they manage and use data?
Yeah.
Like when you have to work within certain boundaries, it can actually push you to think outside the box and come up with creative solutions.
I absolutely agree. I think that's a much more likely outcome.
Yeah.
When companies are forced to really think about their data practices and come up with ways to manage them efficiently and effectively, it can actually lead to breakthroughs and new ways of doing things.
So instead of seeing these regulations as a roadblock, companies could view them as an opportunity to rethink their approach to data and come up with even better ways to use it to their advantage.
Exactly. It's about turning a potential challenge into a competitive advantage.
I like that.
Me too.
So it's not just about playing defense.
All right.
It's about playing offense as well.
It is.
Companies that embrace data governance and make it a core part of their culture are likely to be the ones that thrive in this new environment.
Right. Absolutely. I think so. They'll be the ones attracting top talent, building trust with customers, creating sustainable value.
While those that drag their feet and view data governance as a chore might find themselves falling behind.
Yeah, that's possible.
So it's not just about avoiding penalties.
Yeah.
It's about seizing an opportunity.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that data governance isn't just a cost of doing business.
Right.
It's an investment.
An investment that can pay off in multiple ways.
Absolutely. And that's a message I think we need to keep emphasizing.
Because ultimately, it's not about data. It's about people.
You got it. It's
Yeah.
about using data responsibly and ethically to create a better future for everyone.
Well said. On that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of data governance.
Okay.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure discussing this important topic with you.
It really has. It's been great.
It's been a fascinating conversation, and I think our listeners will come away with a much clearer understanding of the challenges and opportunities ahead.
I hope so.
What would you say is the key takeaway from all of this?
The key takeaway is that data governance is no longer optional. It's essential for any company that wants to succeed in the digital age.
And it's something that everyone needs to be thinking about, not just compliance officers and IT professionals.
Absolutely. Data affects all of us, and we all have a role to play in ensuring it's used responsibly.
So as you go about your day today, think about how data is being used in your life and what you can do to promote ethical and responsible data practices.
That's a great challenge to leave your listeners with.
I think so too.
Thanks again for having me.
And thank you to all our listeners for joining us on the Deep Dive. We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a fascinating topic. Until then, stay curious and keep learning.